We're live on the Blue Room. It's a very blue room this evening. We're live on YouTube for the instant match reaction for Atalanta 3, Everton 0. The second game in the space of 4 days that you could say the scoreline has definitely flattered Everton. And just before we start, I've got Dave Downie here. Paddy Boyland joining us on Skype as well. Just before we start, lads, there's been a lot of negative reactions towards the manager tonight. A lot of people calling for his head. I'm not going to go down that road, but the thing I would say, Dave Downie, is that performance tonight, paired with the Tottenham one, is the type of display that can really change a tide towards a football manager and make fans go from potentially being a little bit neutral to it all, seeing what's going to happen, to thrusting them into a completely different camp.
Yeah, it is, because I mentioned this earlier on this week. You can lose football matches and you can lose them to better sides. We've done so for many years with Evertonians. We're used to that to a certain extent. It's the manner in which you go about it. And this is why I didn't buy into people's theories that we were up against tough opposition and things like that. And I didn't buy these theories because I think it's blatantly obvious the opposition we're up against and the level in which we're trying to play to. That's all too obvious, but there's a bare minimum that you have to produce as a football player, as a professional, and as a human being. Basically, your performance levels. In Koeman's case, you're getting paid £6 million a year to put out absolute dross. And these performances, the last two, are up there with the worst we've had in the last two managers. And that's a tough thing to come to terms with, given how much money we've spent, given everything that's felt fresh about the club over the summer. It's just all hit a rapidly downward curve, and I don't know where he goes to put this right. I'm not calling for his head. I'll categorically state that now. But I think he's under immense pressure, and it'll take a hell of a lot for him to turn it round.
Paddy, first of all, just how do you reflect on that performance as a whole? And just the people who are listening and have tuned in on YouTube, if you want to get involved in the discussion tonight, in the comments box, Dave's going to read out some of the comments and we're going to discuss them. But Paddy, you were watching, I did a match report on that, and I said to you before we came on air, it must have been one of the easiest or the hardest match reports that you've ever done in terms of the result. But obviously, in terms of Everton's performance as well, it was pretty galling. But just your initial reflections on the performance and Ronald Koeman as well.
Yeah, I don't really know how it could have got worse than the Tottenham game on Saturday, but we somehow managed to do that in the first half there. It was a complete capitulation after the first one went in. And even before then, there were obviously warning signs. Stecklenberg had to make a very good save to keep the score at 0-0. And it seemed like it was only going to be a matter of time before Atalanta's dominance came home to roost. And they were far superior in just about all aspects of play tonight, I thought. And I guess that brings us on to the manager and the calls, at least on social media, for him to go. I think they're slightly premature, although I do understand where people are coming from, because there's very little to take from these last two games, maybe even the last three, in terms of positivity and optimism. The one bright spark for me was possibly Vlasic's performance in midfield. I thought he looked just about the most composed in blue. But elsewhere, it's a defence that was steamrolled by Petagna and Gomez up front for the second game in a run, actually, if you look at what Kane and Ali did to them on Saturday. The midfield seems to have no control over games whatsoever, and obviously Morgan Schneiderlin's in a bit of a rut. There's no pace in wide areas, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin was given an immensely difficult job tonight, leading the line against three very wily, it must be said, Atalanta defenders. So the moment we went 3-0 down, the game was basically over. I don't think anybody expected Everton to get back into the game from that point. But again, we want to see a bit of fight from the team. We want to see, even if you lose, say, 3-2, and you're able to build on some kind of momentum there, that's something, I guess. But it's a particularly low base for the players now. And I guess with Manchester United on the horizon, a very, very difficult game against Manchester United on Sunday, Koeman's got his work cut out to turn this around, because I just don't really see where we go from here, to be honest.
Dave, looking at the team that Ronald Koeman picked tonight, I know you had a few issues about the goalkeeper, but I think in the end he was probably one of Everton's better performers. The main problem for me was Schneiderlin and Besic in midfield, and I think we said this during the Hajduk split game. And it's another instance for me, the manager not really learning lessons from previous matches, because in that game we said that those two, in the way they go about things, are probably the two most similar midfielders Everton have got. I think obviously Schneiderlin, when he's at his best, does that job a lot better than Mo Besic, but they both want to drop into between the back four, get the ball and get Everton going. And there was actually a moment before Atalanta scored the first goal where they both made that same run back into between the defenders, and the ball went long, the midfield was empty, and they nearly scored from it. And that was the one major issue with the team selection for me. But again, it's another instance of Ronald Koeman seeing something not working and persisting with it. And again, we've seen Wayne Rooney out wide. Again, we've seen Gylfi Sigurdsson out wide at times. It's becoming and I think when Roberto Martinez, it all started going downhill for him. The thing that we used to point out a lot on the show was that it didn't seem as though he was learning from the mistakes that he was making. And I think we're starting to see that a little bit with Ronald Koeman as well now.
I've seen some interesting points on Twitter amongst the ones that have said level-headed, which isn't me, by the way. I mean, I'm properly willing to go to town here. I'm not. It's indefensible what we've done tonight, let alone Spurs. Yet tonight looks worse because people are telling you to calm down in the aftermath of Spurs. Problem for me is there's no identity in that team whatsoever. I don't know what we're about. We start and the team sheet comes out and I'm sitting there looking. I'm thinking, all right, yeah, make me peace with Stecklenberg as much as I can't stand him, and I think he's an awful goalkeeper. Maybe Pickford's injured, picked up a niggle. Back four, all right, I'll get on board with that as well. Jagielka and Keane are probably our best two defenders as it stands. Holgate right back, makeshift. Baines left back, no one else. There's problems with that before you'd even go any further, isn't there, in terms of selection and stuff. But I look in front of that and I think Schneiderlin was one of our worst performers against Spurs. I thought he was abysmal, and I thought he was abysmal because of the lack of effort. I didn't think he was abysmal in terms of what he brings to a football team, because it's all too clear what he does, and when he's on form, he's fantastic. He needs to be enjoying himself to play as well. He's got that charisma about him that when things are down, I wouldn't have him if you're the team that approaches a relegation dogfight. He's not the type of character I want in my team. Let's put it that way. And who knows? That might be our header with this crap at the minute. But he kept his place. I don't know why he decided to drop Garner and put in Besic, who I don't know what he is as an Everton player. I don't know what his career has turned into, because there's players there like him who will get a game for us in that Europa League, but yet when it comes to the Premier League, they look like they're a million miles away from ever getting anywhere near the first team. And it ultimately showed, just to jump the gun a little bit here, Kevin Mirallas, come on. Now, if that isn't an example of how bad things are for us at the moment, because there's a player who Everton were trying to flog towards the end of the window and were willing to let him go on a permanent deal. Koeman openly said, I think, he's got an attitude problem.
Yeah.
He's the third sub we're turning to. Where's Ademola Lookman? You know, where's John Joe Kenny? Obviously, I'm not talking about the situation, but I'm talking about players who need to be put in that squad. Where's Tom Davis? Nowhere to be seen. And I can't for the life of me figure out where Koeman gets the logic from. Because for me, he was always a logical manager. And I think something I really like about him is how simple he keeps things in his team selection and how he approaches football. I think it's very simple and it's been very effective. But this, to me, doesn't make any sense in any way you look at it. We've got Sigurdsson. Don't know where he's playing. Rooney just seems to be in the team because he's Wayne Rooney. Given all the shit that he's went through over the past couple of weeks, I don't know where his head's at, firstly. And yet he seems to be the first name on the team sheet.
And he's been flogged already. He's playing left back there for long spells of that game. He's been asked to do a job out wide, which he's never really been able to do when he was fully fit. Maybe it was absolutely pumped for Manchester United for a bit, but he's never really had that in him to get up and down. And that's it, isn't it, Paddy? I think we'd all be a lot more patient and a lot more understanding if we could see some kind of identity pulsing through here. If you could say, right, it's quite clear what the manager's trying to do and quite clear how he wants them to play. But at the moment, it's just a huge mishmash, isn't it?
Yeah, I think well, I am realistic enough, and I'm sure many others are as well, in terms of accepting that we've brought so many players into the club this summer that they're going to need a good while to fully bed in and get up to speed. But I think, as Dave has mentioned before, there's a baseline that you expect in terms of effort and physicality and things like that. And one of the most galling aspects for me this evening was actually the amount of 50-50s that were lost against the opposition. I think, as I've already said, Petagna up front gave Jagielka and Baines and to a lesser extent Michael Keane the run around, and also duffed them up physically, I thought. But that was mirrored all over the pitch by people losing 50-50s and losing battles. And I completely take on board the point you make about the lack of blueprint. I think that's really, really apparent in the final third, to the point at which we haven't scored in 3 games, 3.5 games if you take the 10 men against Man City in the game at the Etihad before Chelsea. We haven't scored in 3.5 games. You don't really know where the next goal is going to come from, and there seems to be a lack of plan in the attacking part of the pitch. We flood central areas with number 10s without any kind of width to the play. Dave makes a good point about Morales coming on. Where's Ademola Lookman? Where's John Joe Kenny? Players that are performing well for the under-23s aren't given a fair crack of the whip, and the same underperforming players are being picked. So it sounds like we're being overly negative, but it's just because there's not one part of the Everton team at the moment that I think is functioning correctly. Maybe with the exception of Pickford, who's enjoyed a decent starting goal, there's nothing else really to be positive about. The defence was torn to shreds for part of tonight's game, and we could have ended up conceding 5 or 6. The midfield looks all at sea at the moment, and Schneiderlin's a big problem in there. And then up front, we're just not even looking like we're going to create chances or score goals. So that's really, really worrying, I think, moving forward, because so many different components here, including the manager and the board, who got it wrong over the summer in not bringing in the striker. So many components just aren't functioning properly at this moment in time.
On the game itself, Dave, they started much brighter than Everton. They had a few chances from set pieces, and then Everton had a pretty good 5 or 10 minute spell where Sigurdsson had an effort. They played some neat interchanges around the edge of the box, but they couldn't really sustain any pressure. And for me, it was almost as if after about 25-30 minutes, Atalanta had a good look at Everton and thought, these really aren't up to much. No. And they just stepped it up, and it gave them a bit of confidence. And before that first goal went in, you could just see Everton retreating. There were times when Atlanta were knocking the ball around, and the Everton centre-backs were in their own penalty area because they were defending so deep. You could see that they were causing a real threat from set pieces. When switched on the goal, Schneiderlin, he's looking the complete other way when the ball comes across. And another worrying thing, and again, it's concerningly for me, it harks back to the Roberto Martinez, the last days of him, was that in the last 3 games, if you look at it now, teams have scored goals in quick succession against Everton. Chelsea did it at Stamford Bridge. Tottenham did it last week. And here we can see the 3 in the space of, what was it in the end? 10, 15 minutes, something like that. And it's as if as soon as that first goal goes in, I think there's probably 2 things here. I think that the point you've made over the past couple of shows is that this Everton team looks like it's only got 1 goal in them, if that, at the moment. So it's almost as if when we go behind, it's like
one shot at the minute.
It's like it's almost as if when we go behind, it's like, oh, that's it. Now heads go down. We're going to really struggle to get back in here as well. And it's a lack of concentration defensively. It just seems as though once that first goal goes in, we spoke about Ashley Williams' reaction after goals last week, Schneiderlin. And after that second goal today, you know, you look around, and granted it was a fantastic strike, but where's the reaction? Where's anybody geeing the players up and saying, come on, let's get to half time and then we'll react then? There's absolutely none of that at all, is there?
And a gang of lads flushed with leaders as well.
Supposedly,
you know, all over the place. I mean, there's nobody when we go 1-0 down there, and against Spurs and against Chelsea, which was equally as toothless and could have been worse. Nobody with a set of bollocks on them to say, listen, what are we doing here? What are we playing at? Nobody saying to the defence. I mean, Jagielka, club captain, what's he doing? Is he standing there shouting at everybody? Body language stinks. Got a young lad Keane next to him there who's looking to make the step up into playing for a better football club than Burnley and getting the England squad. I didn't see much from him, even though he tries to influence a game, because you've seen him. I mean, I think he had a 40-yard pot shot at the end as well. I mean, at least he's doing something. Jagielka, Baines, spineless. It's completely spineless. It's gutless. And I feel so sorry for the Blues that have gone over there, because to see that is an absolute disgrace.
They'll all be enjoying themselves now.
I hope so, mate. I really hope so, because I mean, I don't know if that ground's meant to be in the middle of nowhere, isn't it?
I'm not sure.
And Bergamo's 120 odd miles away, but you know, it's unacceptable. Hearing Koeman come out and say what he did after the game as well. We just caught a brief glimpse of some of the press conference, Matt, didn't we? And he's come out and said that he basically takes the blame himself and said the players weren't prepared for the game. The idiot of a journalist follows up the question with how good Atalanta's two forward players were who we've never frigging heard of. Don't get me started on that first, but he's come out and said that, okay, front up, say that, appreciate your honesty. Ask him why. Why is the team not prepared to go to a nice place in Italy? It's not like we're going to the former Soviet Union, is it? And you know,
let's not forget.
It baffles me that we're in a position there where the manager's coming out, and I hate the comparison. I hate to say it, because he brought me to tears towards the end of his management. But that is something Roberto Martinez would say.
Well, the team's not weren't prepared properly.
Yeah, and nobody will follow up and question him. That journalist needs sacking. But secondly, why would Koeman come out with something like that? I mean, it's desperate. Everything at the minute looks desperate. And there's somebody who made the point to me on Twitter then, there's no plan B in this setup at all. There's no plan fucking A. Yeah. He's not. I'm not looking at that side thinking, do you know what? I can see us there getting a ball out on the wing, whipping a cross in. Who've we got? It's all so narrow. It's all congested in the midfield. Kid Vlasic's there. I thought he did okay for the first 10, 15 minutes. Yeah. I thought he looked sharp. Wants to get on the ball, wants to play, have some movement. One tiny glimmer of hope in that first 10, 15 minutes was that chip that Rooney has an effort on goal with. We actually look like we give the ball and somebody wanted it back. And there's nobody taking the ball by taking the game by the scruff of the neck. And you mentioned to me when we were down at Swansea last season about Tom Davis being one of the very few, or the only one in that game, who looks like he wants to run towards goal, looks like he wants to score goals. Where are these players? Why is he sticking with tried and tested filth? Because that's what it's been lately. He's not even putting in other players. You can say, oh, well, he hasn't been in the maybe Bessett, he hasn't been in the team long, so we can, write that one off, really. He might not be fit. Well, therefore, the knock-on question of that is, why is he there? Why is he playing? Do you know what I mean? Why are we not prepared for this game? His team selection stinks. The personnel that he's picking, there's no merit to players getting a game. I mean, I mentioned John Joe Kenny there. I mean, he must be awful. He must be a really, really poor right back if he can't get in. The Mason Holgate, who's a centre half and does a decent job, and Cuco Martina, who I don't want to see in an Everton shirt ever again. How bad must he be if he's not even getting a look in, not even as a substitute? That's all on Koeman. I accept that when players are on the pitch, mistakes happen in games and there's moments where the manager can't control it. But for Koeman to come out, a man like Koeman as well, and dare I say it, this is where I think it clouds a lot of people's judgment who are still wholeheartedly in support of him, because he was a legend of a player. Has he proven it as a manager? People say we have a world-class manager. Remember when he first took over the Everton job, the club put out as the welcome video him scoring blinders for Barcelona and Holland, not him lifting league titles with the clubs he's managed. And you guys will know better than me what he's done on the continent. And I just think we're living in this sort of false reality at the minute, that we're sort of entitled to something because we've gone and spent all this money. We're entitled to see a lot better than what we're seeing, but get back to the basics, defend well, have somebody talk, and that's one of the key things I think people are missing about Stekelenburg starting, when they're not taking much issue with him starting instead of Pickford. Jordan Pickford screams at the back four. He was probably, for me, the man of the match against Spurs, even though he concedes a dodgy goal against Harry Kane. He stopped that from being 5 or 6, and he's the only one who talks. How old is he? 21.
No, 23, I think. Yeah.
He's 23 years old, and we have an average age in our team that's still over 30 with the dinosaurs we have at the back. Where's the leadership? Where's the person grabbing the game by the scruff of the neck.
Yeah.
And I tell you something, mate. Wayne Rooney should hang his head in shame as well. Not because of anything he's done off the pitch, which is, each of us can have our own personal views on something that happens like that. But he's come as England's leading goal scorer, England's captain. Why is he not acting like a leader for Everton? Is there something wrong? And it all feeds into this idea that Koeman and the players in the team aren't on the same page. And you can see that, can't you? Because there's not players dying for the shirt out there. There's not players putting in 100%. I mean, we're marauding through games. We're 3-0 down and knocking it round the back, because they've done their job. They can shut up shop. They can do whatever they like as the 3-0 up. We're knocking it round. Look at the face on the players. It's just flat. There's nothing there at all. There's no fire in the belly. There's not even any shame as well, which is ultimately for me something that you can really sort of criticise, because if you're not shamed about that, then there's something seriously wrong. And I think there are serious problems, and I think he's under immense pressure now.
I think Dave's made an interesting point there, Paddy, about leadership. I think you can be a leader by bellowing and by organising and doing those sorts of things, by putting tackles in and being the cartoonish quintessential leader. But I think there's another way that the players can lead on the pitch as well, and that's by demanding the ball in tight positions. If you're Morgan Schneiderlin, don't drop between the centre halves and get the ball. Stand in midfield, take the ball under pressure, get everything going. If you're Wayne Rooney, do the same. Don't drop back into midfield and play those Hollywood passes like he tends to do. I think he did one, didn't he, which they eventually hit the bar from in the second half. You've got to be disciplined. You've got to be brave in all these different situations if you're going to get out of a rut like this. And at the moment, it doesn't seem to be anybody, not just necessarily a leader, but willing to take responsibility in an attacking sense to get this Everton team going.
Yeah, there's a very British definition of the word bravery, and that's surrounding the kind of things you're talking about, physically intimidating the opposition and knocking into them and trying to create something that way. But I think what I saw from Everton this evening was heads dropping and players not wanting to take responsibility on the ball. The amount of time somebody would look up to pick a pass and everyone would be static without any kind of gesture in terms of wanting the ball. And that was a big problem for me. I just think that, of course, the low in confidence, but even, say, as Dave said there, Wayne Rooney, I didn't see Wayne Rooney demanding the ball in any particular way. It seems as though they're in a rut that they themselves don't feel they can get out of. And after spending what akin to £150 million over the summer, of course, it will take time for these players to settle, but it seems like we've gone backwards, because there are several key performers from last time around, the likes of Schneiderlin, even Idrissa Gueye to a much lesser extent, it must be said, Schneiderlin and others that are just not performing in the same vein as they were. And I've mentioned there that I don't necessarily know where Everton go from here, and that's just because I don't really see too much in the way of positivity in terms of moving forward. There seem to be solutions, but not solutions that Koeman is enamoured with. And you said there, Matt, that you don't feel he's learning any lessons. And I totally agree with that point. How often this season have we basically said the same thing in a cut and paste kind of way already? And we're only in mid-September as it stands now.
Paddy, you've said there, sorry to interrupt you, mate, you've said there that you don't see how we get out of it. Does that therefore mean we're saying he's got to go? No,
I think I said earlier that I would give him time to rectify, and let's see what he comes up with. A £6 million a year manager should be able to have answers. But to me, it doesn't seem as though he is the one at this moment in time that is prepared to make what I would consider to be tough decisions and take favourites out of the side. Say a Rooney, a Sigurdsson or a Klaassen, and throw in somebody like Lookman or even Morales, somebody to offer a bit of width. And that's a worry for me. I'm seeing worrying signs from Koeman in terms of his team selection. Maybe it's a bit too early to call for his head, because I think he's engendered a lot of goodwill with what he did last season in getting us back up to a reasonable position and back into Europe. But he's now starting to undo that, and it's now starting to unravel. And if he doesn't start finding answers then he's going to find himself very, very quickly in a position in which quite a substantial part of the fan base want him to leave. Because all I can say is at the moment it's thoroughly depressing. Watching Everton has become a grind and a chore, and there's no enjoyment. I had a conversation earlier with some Liverpool fans who were quite rightly depressed with the way their side defended last night against Sevilla. That was a 2-2 draw at home to Sevilla. There were spells in that game that I saw where they were fantastic to watch going forward. I don't derive any pleasure from watching Everton's attack and play.
No,
there's no variety at all. There seems to be, as we mentioned earlier, there seems to be no sort of plan. I saw Keane knocking long balls up to Calvert-Lewin, who was surrounded by 3 defenders. There were passes into positions in the channels in which Calvert-Lewin or others like Vlasic were not going to be able to do anything with that kind of scenario and that kind of situation. There looks to be a total absence of intelligence across the board in terms of what players are attempting to do, in terms of their roles on the pitch, what the manager has done there in his team selection and team selections, if we go back even further. And for Koeman to turn around, I think, after the game and to say that we weren't properly prepared, given the money he is on and given his reputation, I think that's close to criminal in a sense.
Well, I think some brilliant points there, Paddy. And I think that the thing that struck home with me when you were talking there is that when you're a manager like Ronald Koeman and you're quite prickly, you're a disciplinarian, you focuses on cohesive football, direct football. If you don't get results, you've not really got anything else, have you? You can't go to the match at the moment and look at Everton and say, well, at least I'm enjoying the football. You know, at least the manager's charismatic and enjoyable to watch at times.
I.e. Martinez.
Yeah, it's not. I think we're not quite there. Yeah, it's not quite as dark.
But I mean, in terms of he flattered to deceive a lot, didn't he?
Yeah, but I think sometimes you can cling on to things, can't you, when you go to the match and the team's not playing well, and you can say, oh, at least this. At the moment, you've got a team that's not performing well, a team that's not scoring goals, a team that's not defending well. So it's all kind of coming together. And what I'm seeing from this team at the moment is just a manager and a group of players who are just always taking the easy option. Koeman's doing it in terms of his team selection. I think the players on the pitch probably even more culpable in this. Like you mentioned there, Michael Keane looked like he could play off from the back with ease in pre-season, early in the season against Stoke. He was playing off from the back well. Now, because they've had a few bad results, he's just hoofing it long to Calvert-Lewin. Jagielka, within 2 minutes at the start of the game tonight, kicked the ball out to play for a throw-in. Leighton Baines just knocking the ball down the channel. Holgate's doing the same. Schneiderlin and Besic are dropping so deep to get the ball and playing these expansive passes out wide. Anyone can do that job. Anyone can drop into space and play a pass out wide to the flank. Get in midfield and do it there. Get higher up the pitch. Wayne Rooney, again, as you mentioned there, Dave, just seems to be getting the ball with his back to goal. It's just far too deep. And it's all amalgamating into this team that just looks so casual and so sluggish. And you think, somebody have some bollocks and do something that's actually affecting the game, whether it be the manager. Do you know what? I was sitting there today when we were 2-0 down, and I thought back to Koeman's second Premier League game against West Brom, and he changed it.
Yeah.
After, I think it was half an hour, took James McCarthy off. Things clearly weren't working. He put Romelu Lukaku on, and Everton turned it around and won the game. And I thought, where's that fella gone? You know, he came in and everyone thought this is going to be a really proactive manager. He's going to take no bullshit off anybody. The performances aren't to scratch. He's going to show it.
Did it with Barkley at Sunderland, 0-0 as well.
He did, yeah. Early last season. And you look at that today and you think he could have easily made a change after half an hour, but he didn't. For that, the same 11 to come out in the second half, again, I mean, I don't know if he's going with the approach of, you lads got us into this shit, you lads get us out of it. But what kind of message does that send out to those players on the pitch who turn in that type of performance?
That they can get away with it.
It just seems as though everybody's taking the easy option at the moment. And somebody, I don't know if it's the manager, I don't know if it's Farhad Moshiri, I don't know if it's Wayne Rooney, Phil Jagielka, somebody at the football club's got to say, we all need to grow a big set of bollocks here and start doing things a little bit differently. Because the way we're going at the moment, was it three games we've lost now in a row?
3.5 without a goal.
Yeah, we haven't scored a goal in 3.5 games. There's a manager at Crystal Palace there who's been sacked for basically doing that at the start of the season. So everybody needs to have a hard look at themselves and lift the standards, because it's just not been good enough recently.
Well, the point about him getting sacked.
No, obviously, I'm not in that camp. I'm not in that camp, but I'm just saying.
No, but I can see why people are. I can see why people are saying this isn't. It's quite clearly not good enough. I can see why people are saying, well, why are we having any patience with this fella, given the fact that he's on £6 million a year? There's not even a smidgen of positivity you can take from anything in those games, and that's why I think people are calling for this head. Just on the comments we've got there. Sorry, we've taken so long to get.
Yeah,
to
sorry,
you
just get into something. There's
a lot to get off our chest.
We've all been having a rant, haven't we?
There's a comments box here. If you're listening on Twitter or whatever, tweet us. Matt will pick them ones up. I'll read out these ones now on the live chat on YouTube. First of all, Neil Daly says it was over a 2-0 lack of shape desire. Team looks broken. Daddy B, maybe Day with your name anyway, mate.
Great name.
Utter shite, £150 million, worse than last year. No striker, no plan, and gutless. Lucky to make top 10 this year, shameful. We literally have no game plan, and it's scary the speed our heads drop after the goal. That's an excellent point, because they do, and there's nobody there.
It's bang, isn't it? Yeah. Like I said before, you know, this is the third game in a row now. I was just saying to you, and I put it on Twitter, Dave.
Yeah. The
opposition we've had have basically had the second half off.
And took the piss.
Yeah.
But, you know, going back to what you said there, I forgot to mention it then. You know, when you're talking about how deep we're defending,
yeah,
is that because they're all slow and sluggish and
lazy? Easy option again.
But if the opposition have got any pace, they get in behind. But then again, we're still conceding goals regardless, and they're sitting on the edge of our 6-yard box, aren't they?
Paddy, do you think that's a tactical thing, or is it just simply a case of those lads can't really get out enough? Because you've got Jagielka there who's getting on a bit now. Leighton Baines is probably similar. Michael Keane's not the quickest. Is that a systemic thing, or is it just they're being a bit lazy in that sense?
Maybe a combination of the two. But I think the other thing is that sides that do any kind of scouting of Everton, or have done any kind of scouting of Everton in the past couple of months, will be able to quickly identify the area in between wing back and centre back if we're playing 3-5-2. Or the area between the two centre-backs if we're playing 4-4-2 or something similar. Identify those areas as being areas that they can potentially exploit. Positions of weakness in the Everton team. We've made quite a lot over the past couple of weeks, I think, on numerous shows about there being a number of people that aren't in the team, a number of players that aren't in the team, in, say, John Joe Kenny and Mason Holgate when he's not either at right back or at centre back, who could, in theory, fit into a 3-5-2 in a better manner than the lads that are in there at the moment. There seems to be a lack of balance in a number of positions, but particularly at centre back. Keane, Jagielka, Williams, that combination doesn't have anywhere near enough pace, which is why the failure is partly systemic. Leighton Baines is no longer a recovery defender in the sense that he's not particularly speedy either. So I think you have to look to get Mason Holgate into the centre as part of a 3 if that's the way you're going to go. I assume that's what he will do against Man United, because he'll be shit scared of the likes of Lukaku and Mkhitaryan running riot. It's going to be a defensive.
That's going to be fucking carnage. Let's be honest, isn't it? I mean, I put on Facebook at the time, Paddy, because our tickets come in the post the other day, didn't I? Saying, I might flog these or something like that. And you said to me, no, you got to have some faith. I mean, it is faithless at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, I have no faith whatsoever. And I was saying
the day out, mate, aren't we?
Tongue in cheek, to be honest.
Yeah. That Chelsea Arsenal game would be great beforehand.
Yeah.
Because we're going there without any optimism that Everton can get anything from the game, and that's so disappointing given how much we've spent over the summer, and a damning indictment of where we are at this moment in time. I'm going to have a nice day in Manchester on the Saturday, and hopefully that will just about make me happy enough to venture to the game and see what transpires there.
Paddy's gonna have a hangover and have to watch Everton on the Sunday.
Yeah, you're not getting anywhere near Old Trafford, you, Paddy.
Everton are worse than a hangover, lads.
Yeah, they are.
Everton are much worse. Everton have kind of put me in some kind of stupor, some rut that I can't get out of.
You properly sound miserable there, sitting in your bills on your computer.
We've had a tweet in from Martin Kuil, who said, Maybe Ross is more switched on than we give him credit for. Did he suss out Ronald Koeman was a fraud last year and decide to jump ship? It's like this generation Samuel Eto'o, isn't he?
Yeah.
In that sense, yeah.
I love the thought of Barkley just taking everyone for a ride. Thinking, they all think I'm thick. Kaiser Soze, Barkley there. I think that's brilliant.
Comes out onto the pitch of a walking stick at the next game. Just sucks it aside.
Been blagging me hamstring injury, haven't I? Give you fake scans and everything. And right as rain. Been doing marathons and everything. Anyway, on the live chat on YouTube, we've had loads more. Stelio Contos says we should liquidate. Probably we did at this moment in time, mate. I'm sitting here at 9 o'clock at night talking like. Oh, I said to Matt before Andy come in, he went, "You're looking like more down than usual there, Dave." And I'm like, well, "You're sick of the false dawns, aren't you? Every fucking time it looks like it's going to turn a corner, we end up with this sack of shit, and it really, really pisses me off." But go on.
Do you know what's really disappointing for me, David? I remember in the summer when the fixtures came out, and we looked at them and thought, we looked at the Europa League campaign, and we looked at the signings we made, and we thought, based on starting in July and having to be ready for competitive football in July, we could go into those games against Manchester City, against obviously Chelsea, against Tottenham, the early Europa League games, the one against Manchester United coming up, and you'd think we've got a good chance of getting a good head start on these, and that's going to be so vital for a team that hasn't necessarily done well in these big matches recently. They haven't been away in Europe and won games as a group yet. This squad, they haven't been to City and won for a few years. They haven't won at Chelsea for over 20 odd years, and you think there's going to be opportunities there for what should hopefully be a settled Everton team and a fitter Everton team to spring some surprises and maybe get a jump start on them.
Yeah, no,
it's the total opposite, isn't it? You'd think that having started so early, they'd be alert and they'd be fit and they'd be there'd be some chemistry there, because people like Klaassen, Keane, Pickford. How many games? I think they said on BT tonight that was our 9th or 10th game of the season already, wasn't it? So
yeah.
It's not as if they've all been thrown in at once, and I know we're going to have to be patient, but at this point you would expect a lot more from a group of players who, when you sign a player for 25, 30, 40 million, you expect them to be able to adapt pretty quickly and link up with other people quickly, but we're not really seeing any of that yet, are we?
Well, I made the point earlier this week of, have we actually played well for a game so far this season? And the answer is no. We played a half, which was okay against Hajduk at home. Ironically, when Ademola Lookman was on the pitch, who I've been banging the drum about since the season started, he seems to have gone AWOL. Scores are screaming in under 23s. I haven't seen him since. Was he on the bench tonight?
No.
There you go. And then City first half was maybe something we could go with away from home against bigger sides, because we're not there yet. 1-0 up, 10 men, cocked that up, and that wasn't a full game. And then I can't even pick moments where I've thought, I can see something here, this looks really good, we can work with this. This is a sign of things to come. Nothing, absolutely nothing. And I honestly dreading going to Old Trafford. But just to get back to the comments, Dave Randall says lots of sense being talked here, no team identity whatsoever. Brendan Murray, Brendan, I think, yeah, I know Brendan, yeah, he's great lad, Brendan. He says, it looks like the team don't want to play. Changing systems and tactics won't change that. I hope I'm wrong, but on top of tactics not working, it just looks like they don't want to play for Koeman. Yep, spot on. That's what I'm seeing. So myself as well, body language, the lot, just doesn't look like they care for Koeman. And that's one thing we've always had. I think even in the later stages of the Martinez era, Paddy, you didn't look at the team and think, this is a lack of effort. It was just a completely inept manager out of his depth towards the end. I mean, you didn't look on the pitch and think, oh, no one's giving a shit about this anymore. It was just genuinely bad management, tactics, and footballers. Whereas you look at this now, like for instance at Wembley, when I was at Wembley last season, at least we tried. He put De La Feu on the second half. We could have won that game.
I don't know, mate. I think they definitely down tools towards the end of Martinez.
Sunderland, they down tools.
Yeah,
Sunderland,
Derby,
yeah.
Derby.
He should have gone. He should have gone after that game. But the point I'm trying to make is, compare that to this. There were at least some characters in that side who look like they were arsed. You look at Barkley's reaction at half time at Wembley when he walks down the tunnel and he's gutted. You look at players on the haunches when we get beat at Wembley. At occasions, players want to be at. So they're playing for the shirt or themselves, if not Martinez. Here, looks like no one's playing for fucking anything. It doesn't look like anybody's thinking like it in the team. Look, I need to perform well to keep me place in the side. Well, I look across the park and see Schneiderlin there, who should have been dropped, and he still kept this place. So why should I fucking bother? It's just a complete mess. How are we in this situation now? I really do not get how we've sunk so low in the space of weeks, and it's all a big mess. Completely agree with what Brendan said. EFC DK92. Play the under-23s, not even kidding, and fuck Koeman off. Well, I mean, let's just
quickly to counter that, we've had a really interesting set of tweets from Joe W. Paterino, who said, people don't want to hear this, but remains. It will take much more than a month for Ronald Koeman to get this right. Lots of new faces, proper evaluate in 2018. It sounds like an excuse, maybe it is, but many new faces in and out. We've got Europe, tough Premier League schedule. Ronald Koeman will need time to get it right. 11 plus form. And then it's finished off by saying, at this level, playing the best teams and all the travel means less training time. Expectations need to be adjusted and patience needed. The Koeman out people need to realise we'll be just back to square one if he goes. England overreacts way too quickly. Projects like this take time.
Well, I mean, it's a reasoned response, I suppose, isn't it? But I think it's perfectly understandable and feasible for people to be questioning this manager.
Absolutely.
And even going as far as saying they want him out. I'm not one, because I don't think it'll happen either way anyway. So I see it as a futile argument, to be honest with you, because it's never going to happen. He will not be sacked. He'd have to go to Old Trafford, put in something of equal measure of that tonight or worse. Then you've got 4 consecutive home games. That's what make or break him in the short term. You've got Bournemouth, then Bournemouth, Sunderland, Burnley, Limassol. He's got to win for all 4 of them, and convincingly. You know, I mean, it's football, isn't it? So you could play Bournemouth in the first one of those 4. That's who we've got first, isn't it? It's not Burnley, is it?
Bournemouth, yeah.
Bournemouth first. You could squeak a 1-0 win.
No, it's Sunderland. Sunderland in the cup, isn't it?
No, we've got. Oh, it's right. Sunderland this midweek, isn't it, Paddy?
Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Sunderland.
So, I mean, I tell you what, would you dare, if you're him, put out a weakened side in that?
No.
Don't think you can. And then you're looking at that Bournemouth game, and like we did against Stoke, didn't play well, come out of it with a 1-0 win, because we looked relatively solid. That seems a lifetime ago. Relatively solid at the back. But even then, you'll still have people saying, well, you've won 1-0, but we've still seen the same old shite. But we've just beaten a side that maybe isn't as good as the ones that we've played. And that's where I think that you can almost get yourself a false sort of plateau there, in terms of, well, we'll go and beat 4 teams who we probably should beat anyway, and the far inferior opposition. Burnley will be tough, by the way, just on a side note, because you've got big players. Bournemouth are on an awful run of form.
So we
yeah. But this is what I'm saying, though. You know, you're saying they'll be tough. It is on a knife edge there, I think. I mean, if you come out of, I mean, if you don't win both of the league games, there's real pressure on him. And I'm not just talking from fans, because as we can see from tonight, there's a lot of pressure on him right now anyway. But I'm talking at boardroom level. If Farhad Moshiri has the ambitions which many of us assume he has, you start looking at that and thinking, is he really this right man for the job here? Because we're, crazy as it sounds, we'll be half a dozen games into the season. We've won 1 at home against Stoke. I think you can make, and I've sat there all week saying, how the hell can Palace sack the board after 77 days? That's different. Koeman's been in charge of Everton for, 15 months now? Pretty much 15 months. And you're seeing a deterioration of this magnitude. You're not seeing him sort of, is it a blip now? It's probably worse than a blip, isn't it? Just given the way we're playing. Not take results out of it for a minute. Look at the way we play football, and you're not seeing a way around it, and us changing it around because we don't have the personnel or a manager with the tactical know-how to do it. Then it becomes a blip, becomes a crisis very, very quickly if you don't go and sort it out. And lest we forget, you're going to get tonked by United. You're playing Sunderland, which is a game you don't really want. Let's be honest, you don't really want at all, even though as much I've banged the drum of us needing to win the trophy, and that's probably our best chance. You go and dump them out because they probably don't want that game either. So yeah, let's ignore that one unless we get battered in that, which is unthinkable. You go into that Bournemouth game with a massive amount of pressure on players to deliver. That's when we'll really see if these have got the bollocks we've been talking about that have been missing so much in the last few games.
No, I disagree. We should have seen it tonight. That performance.
But what I'm saying is, Matt, if he's lost the dressing room and what people are saying is true, that nobody wants him at the club anymore internally, and the Morales stuff, the Rooney stuff, all that stuff.
That's just conjecture, though, Dave.
No, of course it is. It's conjecture at this stage, Paddy. But what I'm saying is, if we go and repeat the dose and nobody looks like they're arsed against Bournemouth, is it not fair to assume that he's not in control of these lads?
You can reasonably read between the lines then, can't you? I think.
Do you not think, Paddy?
I think people could, in a sense, interpret what's taking place on the pitch in a certain way. But we get into this kind of Twitter gossip, the Twitter speculation and conjecture, where we say, oh, the reason why they're doing this is because they must have fallen out with Ronald Koeman. Well, nobody knows that to be the case. Nobody with any kind of connections at Everton is reporting that to be the case. So I just think we need to go steady with that kind of thing. I don't actually think that does anybody any favours, really.
Colin Jones has asked a simple question, Dave. Could Barkley outstay Koeman?
Looks likely now, doesn't it? Because one will probably leave in January, the other might not get until January. So that's a really interesting question. Yeah. If you got any more there, Matt, I've got loads on here.
Yeah, Stephen Robertson said, where has the pre-season confidence gone? Quality players look disinterested, in some cases unfit and bereft of belief tonight. Again, like we said before, it's mad that the players look so sluggish and unfit when you consider how much of a head start they've had on everybody else. Peters said that it doesn't get the lack of urgency, whatever the 11. I think that's probably a fair point, actually. Whatever players have got in the team, they've really struggled in that sense. Just quickly going through here.
You don't see anyone in that side, Matt, just on that point. You don't see anyone in the side as well sort of taking responsibility on their own, if you get what I mean. And I mean that as in, like, you don't see people defying the manager. I mean, do you remember what we said? What player? I can't think in my head what player it was who Martinez is told to play. Or, for instance, Barkley when he went away with England.
Yeah.
There's really that famous clip that time where he comes on the pitch as a sub and Roy Hodgson's screaming at him within 5 minutes saying, play our fucking way, because he's trying to express himself. He completely defies the manager in that situation because he's not doing what he's been instructed. There's nobody amongst them who've got the bottle to, or what we've seen so far, who seem to have the bottle to be able to say, well, sod the manager and what he says. Like, give it Gylfi Sigurdsson if he's getting played out of position. But no, I'm going to go and play where I know I'm playing. I'm going to play better. So sod the manager. So it seems like
really help things though. Really,
I think if you're a professional footballer, you can come up with things yourself. But see, this is the line that you draw between how much a manager can influence a game of football, and from that point of view, it goes against everybody saying that he has lost the dressing room, doesn't it? Because quite clearly, they respect him enough to stay in the positions in which he's put them in, so they're not taking it on their own shoulders to do something about it. I'd look to Wayne Rooney to do something like that and find him popping up in a left-back slot. I mean, I know Wayne's great. He's delighted to be back, but come on, mate. Give us something. Do you know what I mean? You're an attacking footballer. Give us something.
Raging Bull said, you've cheered me up, lads. Listening to you dropping
appropriate name.
Listening to you dropping some F-bombs when you're all usually so composed on the weekly is cracking me up. It's very much Blue Room After Dark now, isn't it?
It really is.
What's people saying on the live chat, Dave?
We've got bags of these, so I'm going to rattle through them really quickly. So if you do hear anything of interest, do one-word answers or really short ones if you can, but I want to give everyone a mention here.
Throw these to you, Paddy.
Yeah, Anthony Kenner, for me, our last few performances have been as bad as anything under Martinez, passing sideways at the back with nothing in front.
Agreed.
Jamie Baird, teams are going to attack us early and get the goal and defend now, and we've got nothing going forward. I disagree with that, actually. I think they're just going to go for the kill and keep on fucking scoring.
Well, it's just, like I said after the game against Tottenham, I think this team's going to struggle so much when they do fall behind the game, because they've not really got it in them to open up defences that are going to sit back and counter-attack us.
He finishes off by saying, drop Schneiderlin now, which I'm in favour of.
Yeah.
Give Davis a go, which I'm in favour of. Leave Besic well away from the squad. Probably in favour of that as well, even though it might be a little bit harsh.
Who was that who said that point?
Jamie Baird.
Jamie, get on the phone to Everton and get the job, mate. I agree with all those points.
Gareth Clark, we are shite. No arguments from the three of us there. Stelio Contos is back. If Limassol are half decent, we're going to finish fourth in the group. Daddy Beak's back. Is it conceivable that a heavy defeat Sunday will result in Mashiri making a season-defining decision?
No.
Absolutely not. No chance of that happening, despite as much as many of us might want it at that point. Shlonny, belter name. Squad seems to have hardly any attack or dynamism without Lookman. He's young and makes mistakes, but he needs to play. Correct. Absolutely 100% correct. I don't care if he comes on and cocks up. Play him, show some intent, give him the ball. He runs at people. That's more than what anyone else is doing right now.
I'll ask you a question now.
Go on.
We all probably agree there that Vlasic is probably the brightest player we had tonight in terms of especially outfield. Do you think he'll start him on Sunday?
No.
No, I don't think he will.
Because as well as him intending to make several changes for Sunday, which was going to happen anyway, in a weird way, this forces his hand to make more, if you get what I mean. So he'd say he was justified, and I think many of us would probably agree with him, to put in players who didn't take part in that tonight. You know? So Davis, he's got, that's where he's got a glimmer of hope, I think, in the he needs to make wholesale changes for Sunday, and his hands forced in many ways. Do you know what I mean? Whereas, you know, if he had any designs on keeping players in the side from tonight, it's completely gone out the window, hasn't it? So we're going to see something different, which is that maybe you can take solace in that. Probably not, because the rest of them have been crap as well. Dave Sanderson, who's a good mate of mine, says it's all going on. It certainly is. Isaac T, let's be honest, I don't want to sack him, but something has to change. There is zero desire from the players. Said that most of the night. Unsworth would at least, I was waiting for this to pop up, Unsworth would at least instill some belief and desire and heart into the team. He knows what it means to play in the blue shirt. I'm not sure how much of that matters in modern football, to be honest with you. And I think I'd love him to go out and prove himself elsewhere first on Unsworth. He'll quite clearly be, if things do go tits up here and he goes, he'll quite clearly be one of the names in the frame.
It's still far too early to be talking about that,
Absolutely.
I think.
Yeah. Gareth Clark, I think Koeman will be sacked. Rafa Benitez. Jesus Christ. Do you know what? As a football manager, fine. I have no problem with him. I'm actually a fan of his as a football manager. I just don't think it'd ever work.
No, it would never, ever work.
Regardless of what happened with Chelsea.
First bad result he'd have, it'll be cop-out, etc., etc.
Spanish weighted, all that. The SBC guru, the title is wrong. You're absolutely right, mate, because I've put post-match analysis, Atalanta 0, Everton 3. If only. Purple Aki, blue shite. Quite obviously not a blue.
Purple Aki's not a blue.
Is he not?
I don't know. Is Purple Aki a blue?
The real one?
Yeah, the real one.
I don't know. I think
if you're listening, you know.
I think he might be.
But thanks for Purple Aki for tuning in for our show anyway and commenting. Yeah,
no problem at all. Don't have any problems with anyone from any other clubs listening to us. Guys, Darren Cooper, would you play in the ass on Sunday?
No.
I don't know.
Put him on the bench.
Have we got? Yeah, he's going to be on the bench. I think he'll play against Sunderland, by the way. I think he might actually get.
You know what? I think there's every chance of us being in Manchester on Sunday, getting the team news through at 3 o'clock and just thinking, should we just stay in the boozer?
Yeah. I'm up for that night now. I'll say, if you find me a decent boozer with a pool table.
Oh, there's loads in Manchester, mate.
There's a burger and chips for £5. I'm there, mate.
Maybe we should just stay away from them then.
If that is the case, be on the lookout, because me and Paddy will be flogging our tickets if that's okay.
If you know any good boozers in Manchester where we can get a nice burger and have a game of pool, where we could potentially not bother going to the match, get in touch and let us know.
Doesn't have to be the obvious Rileys either, because I'm sure there's plenty of them in Manchester.
We'll have to be careful Laura Simpson isn't loitering about.
Who?
Laura Simpson.
Who's Laura Simpson?
The infamous lady that Wayne Rooney's been hanging around with.
Right, okay.
She was on this morning. Did anyone watch it?
I didn't see it.
I caught a bit of it, Dave.
I mean, the girl's obviously gone on there and tried to prove something, but I don't think she come out of it with anything better than what she already had. In fact, I think most of it was made her come off a lot worse, Paddy, because she didn't seem to me to be able to string 2 sentences together coherently.
No, she couldn't. She couldn't. And the other thing is, you would wonder why any person would take a shine Channing to her, really.
When Paddy said Laura Simpson, I just thought he was talking about one of his mates he knew from Manchester or something.
But it did ring a bell, and I thought, who's he on about? Is this someone else knows? But yeah, I mean, that as well in isolation. I mean, that's just rumbling on, that saga, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not getting any better for him. The headlines haven't stopped. Yet he's persistently starting for us. And someone made the point to me that, well, he's our most potent player because he scored 2 goals so far this season. Well, that doesn't say much about the rest of them, does it? Let me finish off on these points here. Big the foot. We're changing the team every game, and I think it's going to take even longer to settle if this carries on. I'd agree if you could see something from a team that you think, well, let's stick with this and see what can happen. But every single one of them that he's tried has looked as bad as the other. So you can, I think all of us would change it. I mean, if you'd seen the Spurs game, you'd make changes for tonight. I think you've seen tonight, you're going to make changes for Sunday.
What I'd like to see him do is, after the United game, just set on an 11 and say, you lads are going to play the next 4 home games in a row. And that's what we're going to go with. Make a bold decision on a team that you think is going to work and a system that's going to work and personnel that's going to link together pretty well and give them a chance to flourish as a team, because you've got 4 home games there against that. What was that? Sorry.
What system?
I mean, I'm not proposing any particular system.
4-4-2.
But you know what I mean? I think there were times last season when he went through this where he was changing every single week, and he stumbled upon something in January by playing Barkley on the right, and he stuck with it. And that's when we went on the best run that we've been on all season. We had those 8 home games in a row. I think he just needs to. I think it was Louis van Gaal who said put his bollocks on the table, famously, another Dutch manager. So I think he needs to do that and go with a team that he thinks is going to work, play them, give them 4 games to get up to speed together, and use that as the foundation for the rest of the season. Every Oz has just sent us a message there on Twitter, Dave, saying, is Dave okay?
I'm not at all. I mean, I said I was at 60% fume level. Head's gone, mate. Yeah. Head's gone. My body's over there somewhere. Just on finishing off these comments, by the way, Stelio, legend, mate. Thanks very much for tuning in. He just said, Colin just scored a banger. I support them now. Thank you, Everton, for nothing. Arsenal. Cologne, sorry. Is it, how do you pronounce it?
I think it's spelled Koln in German, isn't it? But just Cologne in English.
Paddy will know. Go on.
I do know, but do I have to pronounce it?
Go on.
The Germans would say Köln.
Köln.
But we can just say Cologne, can't we?
Their fans, look. Did you see all the videos of their fans in London today?
Yeah, I love all that. But
fantastic,
not the scenes.
Yeah.
Like,
it's going to be us in Piccadilly Gardens on Sunday.
I'm getting onto the tram.
Dave with his drum.
Right, Darren Cooper. The team on Sunday should be Pickford, Davis. Oh, hang on, he's picking teams here now. Let's have a look. Pickford, Davis, Holgate, Keane, Williams, Baines.
So Davis, right wing back, I'm assuming. That is.
Williams, Baines, Gay, Klassen, Sigurdsson, Rooney, Nias. Wow.
Not sure about that.
Certainly different, mate. I'll give you that. Woody FC, do you think we should drop Keane, like Keown says?
No.
Mate, I don't even think Martin Keown knows what he says himself half the time, so I wouldn't be listening to him. But no.
That is the maddest shout of the night, though.
Because he's quite clearly our best defender. Regardless of how shit he is, because the rest are that much worse, and I include Jagielka in that because he was abysmal tonight, also as a leader. And Stelio, again, best mate. Martin Keown is a sardine smuggler. Would the EFC, and do you think they're playing 3, 4 or 5 at the back fits our players best? I think he means which of those. I've said it for a long time. I think it's 4, because when Coleman's fit, it's a different kettle of fish. When you had Leighton Baines, I'd probably say up until a point last season, you can play him as a wing-back. I know you two think differently about this, but I don't see us going anywhere near a wing-back system with the pair. I'm playing successfully with it, unless defensively, like you've said, Matt, on the weekly this week. I don't see that being successful for us at any point. I think it has to be a flat back 4.
I think if you're going to, I'd play 3 at the back, but I think you need Mason Holgate as part of that back 3, and you need John Joe Kenny as a right wing back. I think that's the best way to go. Now, I was going with our best team and the best way to get a result on Sunday. They're the personnel I'd bring into that side, and like I said, it's quite adaptable in the way you can play. It gives Kenny a bit more license to get forward, and it would allow players who we've got who are more comfortable in central areas of the pitch, higher up the pitch, to play in positions that they'd be suited to instead of shoehorning Rooney out wide or Sigurdsson out wide. So in practice and on paper, that's what I'll go for. But obviously, it never works out quite like that, does it?
Paddy, doesn't it make us really narrow when you think about that? Having wing backs who aren't actually wing backs, if anything, by name, if only by name, really. Because you've got Baines who won't get forward as often as he used to, and you've got probably Holgate who play there because quite clearly, I mean, if Cuco Martin is on the team sheet, I will give my ticket away for free outside Old Trafford, so you can come and wait for me if you want. But that system there is just essentially playing a back five, isn't it? Because you've got nobody with any attacking impetus in the wing back slots.
It is if you're playing Holgate and say Baines. Obviously, Baines at one point in his Everton career was fantastic and would have been ideal for that role. But I think now, as we keep mentioning on the weekly shows, he's somebody who seems to lack a bit of thrust going forward. He's not quite got the engine he once had, and obviously on the other side, Holgate is probably more naturally a centre back. So
you feel sorry for him being put in that position as well, Paddy, don't you?
I do. I think I feel really sorry for him, and he went on a really good run last season where he played centre back. I remember a game away at Leicester, might have been on Boxing Day last season, where he played as the third centre back, and he was absolutely brilliant that day. And they brought on a Joa late on, I think it was, and Holgate kind of stood up to him physically as well. So I think that's where Holgate should be played from now on. And if it's in a back three, it's got to be as the third centre back, or potentially on the right of the back four if he's not going to play John Joe Kenny. But
the one game he had a decent spell at right back, Paddy, was at Old Trafford last season, wasn't he? I thought he was really, really good against United.
He was, and at times he was very good against City. Yeah. I thought this season as well, barring the late header, which obviously Sterling scored from. I thought he was close to faultless against Sané, who was obviously a really tricky customer, as Liverpool saw at the weekend. So Holgate's definitely got a role to play. Moving further forward, I don't now see how Rooney and Sigurdsson necessarily fit into that same attacking midfield, because I think they're a bit too similar and they take up the same positions, really.
I'll get through these quick because I know Matt wants to go and do some bleach. So I'll get these finished.
What do you mean by bleach?
As in
drink some bleach.
I thought I'd been
bleach his hair.
I thought I'd been cut off, and it was do some Bleacher report or something.
Shameless plug there for this stuff. Plenty of that when he's skiving from ears, and he done half an hour for us this week, but that's a different subject.
I think I did an hour and a half on the European Football Show on Monday. But come on, let's
listen. All right, there we go. Big the Foot says, if we don't do well in the goods run of games after Man United, where does that leave Koeman? Gone, I think the word is from me. Paddy, would you say that? I know you're not one to push the boat out too much on him having his job on the line, but if we, I mean, what's the bare minimum he needs to get from those four?
The four being the home games.
Yeah.
I think we need to see progress against Sunderland in the Cup. Obviously needs to be a victory against Limassol in the Europa League, and I think anything less than 4 points, and ideally it needs to be 6, but anything less than 4 points in the games against Burnley and Bournemouth would leave him in a very precarious position, at least as far as the fans are concerned.
I think
we can't speak for Moshiri and Ken Wright and what they're saying at boardroom level, can we?
Well, no, and you think of the financial clout it'll take to sack him. I know Everton are cash rich at the moment, but it cost a lot of money to bin him off now because he's on $6 million a year. What's that? Best part of 2 years.
Not as much as it costs to sack Martinez, I suppose.
He's sitting pretty.
But I think the other thing you need to do is make it enjoyable again as well, because everyone's so down at the moment, and I can't imagine that's going to change. I'm an optimist in terms of Everton, and when I walk into Old Trafford on Sunday, I'll probably somehow still think we can get a result. But realistically, we're not going to. So everyone's going to go into that game against Sunderland needing to be lifted. Everyone's going to go into the game against Bournemouth wanting to be entertained a little bit more, because everyone's just so low about the way the teams perform at the moment. Not just in terms of results, but the style as well. There's really nothing there at the moment, and it needs a spark, whether that can come from someone like Vlasic or Lookman or even John Joe Kenny. You need to see something a little bit different, to something a little bit more entertaining. Because if we beat Sunderland 1-0, you're going to go into the Bournemouth game with the same sort of,
sure.
I can't really be fussed with this one again. So I'd like to see something a little bit different, and maybe it's time to introduce a younger player and give him a run on the team for a little bit.
Ryan Holroyd's got involved. I love Ryan because he's a man after my own heart in terms of fuming. But he says, what the fans see in Mo Besic yet? He tackled Yaya once. Completely agree, mate. I'm not his biggest fan. He also said, probably this for another time, actually, but so just give me a short answer, lads. But he said Everton's biggest problem is Steve Walsh. He's a glorified scout and not up to the job as director of football.
We'll see. I
suppose we will see, yeah, because, you know, I personally think it's unfair. I disagree with him. I think it's unfair on Steve Walsh because there's other players who can there's other people who conduct Everton's the formalities of Everton's transfer business other than him. He identifies players. I mean, before the last two games, could we really have argued that he'd identified the poor player? And this goes back to the thing about giving players time, doesn't it? Just on the others, Matthew Chandler, what do you reckon our best front four are? Jesus, mate, I don't think we've got a best front one. We've got about four. Sambu, the lad from Coventry.
Are they two different people?
I don't even know anymore. No, I can't even answer that, mate.
Kieran Dowley and Welsh.
I think he means if you're playing three behind the central striker. So it's obviously Calvert-Lewin up front.
Sigurdsson.
I don't know if it includes Sandro in it.
I'd play Sandro just for a bit of variety and variation.
Probably Rooney because he's the only player we've got who scored a Premier League goal this season.
I'd go Lookman, Davis, Calvert-Lewin. Just play the kids basically, and Sigurdsson.
Yeah,
rest can get in the bin.
Right, have we gone through the questions?
No, not yet, Matt, because you keep on stopping me. Jordan Carroll might be time to replace Bain soon, as much as I hate to say it, just not the same player. Got ripped tonight. Completely agree with that.
With who?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, where's Luke Garbutt these days? Kuko, no chance. Bess's comment, Stelio, did you see Bess's sliding nobody on their third goal? The dude's a lunatic. I really like Vlasic. Yeah, I agree. If he was one tiny thing you can take from this, you'd say about Vlasic being decent. Ryan Holroyd, Besic is the Serbian Klaus Thompson. Anthony Kenner, spot on.
I think that's a bit harsh.
Yeah, Matt, you're getting praised there. You're interrupting me again. Spot on, Matt. Watching Everton is a chore again at the minute. I think you'll find Paddy said that, and then I secondly praised Paddy for it. So Anthony,
I'm saying nothing.
Keep drinking, mate.
Anthony knows his stuff. I'm telling you, know.
And finally, Daddy Beak. What one thing do Everton need to show on Sunday? Pride, he says, is the answer. Yeah, I'd go with that.
Yeah,
just a set of bollocks.
Yeah,
somebody just taking control and not standing for the shite we've seen tonight in the Spurs game, and big the foot once more. Roll on Balassi and Coleman's return. Couldn't agree more. And that's about it.
Yeah, you'd say Sunday's the test of character, but I think tonight was in that sense because the performance against Tottenham was so bad. Everyone was so down. You'd expect some kind of reaction from it, but if anything, it was even worse. But yeah, it's been interesting, hasn't it, lads? It's we always need to talk a little bit more and a little bit more in depth about things when Everton get beaten. Thanks for everybody out there for getting involved with your points. We'll be back on Sunday when we do the instant match reaction after the Manchester United game. In the meantime, Paddy, it's your mailbag tomorrow.
Certainly is. We'll send out a tweet shortly for questions.
And please. Some non-Everton related questions, please.
I meant you need to, as in we've had bucket loads anyway, but we promised to answer them, don't we?
We've also got the weekend preview where we're speaking to Steve Armstrong, who's a Manchester United supporter. I'm sure he was,
if we can get past the laughing,
rubbing his hands together watching that tonight. And El Bretland's also got his Friday vote, I believe it's called now. So yeah, be sure to check that out as well.
Yeah, 3 big shows tomorrow, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's all going to be get you prep for the weekend, which I imagine it's going to be another long weekend for Evertonians. But thanks very much to Paddy for joining us on Skype. Thanks to Dave. We'll be back tomorrow and over the weekend.